of fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll for Memphis.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin, and today we're here to give our spoiler-free reactions to Ty West's latest film titled Maxine, which is part of a trilogy of horror films. The first one being Pearl, which is a prequel to X, and then X being the next in that line of trilogies, and finishing it off with Maxine with 3 X's. So kind of tells you the line of work that she's in, especially off of the first movie X. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, what's going on? Are you ready for your moment to shine in the limelight? Are you a star?
You're going to be a star.
I'm going to be a star. Say it with me, Devin. I will not accept a life I do not deserve. It's the
motto to live by.
It is a great model to live by, and it's just one of those sayings that's definitely going to stay within like the film relevancy for a while. I'm going to start saying that to people.
But you have to do the accent though. That
is true. That's the tough part, because I can't figure out what the accent is going to be. I do a terrible Southern accent despite me living in Music City. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like she's more of the Texas accent.
Yeah, I think X was in Texas, wasn't it?
Yep, all my exes live in Texas. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. But how's your week been, man? Happy Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. How's your life, man? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I actually been watching a couple movies here and there that have come out recently on streaming. I watched the new Beverly Hills Cop. It was decent. Not the most memorable, but it wasn't terrible either. I also watched Beekeeper, the Jason Statham movie. It's on Prime now, and it was actually surprisingly good.
I saw that. I was going to ask how that was, because I was watching Blue Mountain State again for like the 100th time, and found out that was on Prime Video. But I've now switched over to watching it on Netflix, because I think the first season is ad-free, and then they started adding the ads in for season 2 for Blue Mountain State, so I switched over. But Beekeeper was good.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jason Statham's version of John Wick in a way. It was pretty fun.
See, I thought that was his version for Hobbs and Shaw, because that was a good movie. I keep thinking about that movie. We keep coming back to it for some reason, but it is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. The last good Fast and Furious movie.
That is very true. I need to get into watching more movies. It's just, my God, you got your birthday, by the way. Sorry to just like change lanes right there, but how was your birthday?
I mean, yeah, that was my fault. I could have brought that up too. Kind of also slipped my mind, but yeah, it was a good time. I was in PA. I got my favorite chicken parmesan from a restaurant there. So that's always good. And then we played some putt-putt, went to an arcade. It was a good day.
Heck yeah, man. I was going to say, like, hold on. Like I'm talking, you're like, oh yeah, like, how's your week been? I'm like, hold on. Devin's birthday was 2 days ago, as was my mom's birthday. So she came down and visited me, was driving Miss Daisy with her all around. We went shopping, went to the movies, saw Quiet Place Day 1. She wanted to see it, and a friend of hers came down as well. So it was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'm glad you had a great birthday. Get any good birthday gifts, or did you just say, hey, stack out those Steam cards, baby?
It's all about the Benjamins. Just give me that paper.
Oh, the Bennies, the Bennies.
It's just so easy.
Dollar bills, y'all. I feel it, man. I feel it. Hey, I'm glad you had a great birthday. And I can't believe we're already in July right now. Like, how was your 4th? Did you do anything fun there, or did you kind of just hang out all together?
They didn't do anything crazy, just hung out.
I feel it. Yeah. Same here. The 4th took a lot out of me, for sure. It was just a very, very stressful and long day because everyone's everywhere. You're doing everything at once. And I was hanging out by the pool. That took a lot out of me, for sure.
I thought it was interesting that Maxine wasn't showing on the 4th. At least for me, it was like it came out Wednesday, but then there was no show times Thursday because the theaters might have been closed. I don't know, but yeah, then it was back Friday.
Right. I was supposed to see Maxine on Wednesday, but I was not able to make it. So that's why I saw it last night instead. I had to pay for it. Ugh, I'm just joking. But yeah, I was surprised that I guess it's not like a 4th of July movie, but it's still like
American.
a summer flick. Yeah, it's American. It's the Hollywood in the 80s. So I think they definitely should have had something. But with all that said, as we mentioned before, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on Maxine. We're not going to be giving away anything from the movie because even though this runtime is around like an hour and 44 minutes, there are a few spoilers that we are going to avoid just altogether because there's a few twists and turns here. And we're going to talk about how this stacks up to the rest of the Ty West trilogy, I guess you could say. This is like a horror / mystery and thriller kind of movie. So without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to Maxine.
So, Maxine, your agent tells us you're quite a popular name in adult film and entertainment. Is that correct? I'm curious, did you always want to be in that line of work?
I always wanted to be famous.
If you need to read off the sides we gave you, just go ahead, all right?
I know the lines.
She turns to the camera and, through her trauma, addresses the lens directly.
Name 5 celebrities who got their start in horror movies.
Jamie Lee Curtis, John Travolta, Demi Moore, Brooke Shields, and
Maxine fucking Minx.
And we are back with our spoiler-free review of Maxine. This film, of course, is written and directed by Ty West. And producer includes Mia Goth, who also stars in the film, which is awesome, alongside other producers, much like Ty West himself, Kevin Turin and Harrison Crease. And the distributor of this film is A24. And of course, it released on July 5th. That is his official day, 2024, worldwide. And the runtime is an hour and 41 minutes. And the box office, as of right now, according to Rotten Tomatoes, it is a 6.6 million grossing USA box office picture all together. And the synopsis is as follows. In the 1980s, Hollywood adult film star and aspiring actress Maxine Minx finally gets her big break. But as a mysterious killer stalks her starlets of Hollywood, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. Dun dun dun. It's all coming together, as Kronk would say, from Emperor's New Groove. So I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his thoughts on this film, his initial reactions. Devin, what are your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, going into this one, it was hard not to be excited, coming off of obviously X and Pearl, which are 2 movies that we both enjoyed greatly. Just kind of showing the star power that Mia Goth has and the screen queen that she is, because she really has been in a lot of horror movies. She's just kind of been dominating as far as that goes the past like 5 years or so, and it's been great to see. It's always good to see a nice scream queen take over, and she definitely nails the job here as far as the lead role here as Maxine Minx, who just wants to be a star at the end of the day. And I think this setting for this one is definitely very interesting compared to the first two. I loved how it was set in the 80s in LA, kind of like a grimy, gritty, like street level type of 80s LA. I like how he set that up, and I just love in general how all three movies feel so different from each other. Like they're all different time periods, they're all different locations, and they all feel very different, which is very impressive, I would say, as far as pulling that off. I think they all have a distinct feel, which was really well done by Ty West. And I think this one, it might be the most entertaining of the three for me, at least throughout. Up there with X as far as just the edge of your seat trying to figure out what's going on. And this one's more of a whodunit, and it did feel the most like Scream to me out of the three. Kind of had a Scream 3 type vibe, as well as a Halloween type vibe where you're just kind of trying to figure out who did it. And there are some interesting red herrings they throw in there, which I don't know how I feel about those, because there's a lot of reference to actual murders that took place in LA throughout the 80s. And they're just kind of thrown in there to kind of throw us off a little bit. And then as far as the ending goes, it felt a little out of nowhere. It didn't really feel too earned, I would say. It just felt a little off. But I did like the lead up to it, and I liked overall the aesthetic and the feeling of the movie.
I would have to agree with you on a few points there. A few points that might have to disagree, but going into this movie, like Devin said, Devin and I are both massive fans of the Ty West trilogy. So Pearl, and then X, and now, of course, Maxine, the long-awaited Maxine film that we were promised. And at the end of, I think it was at the end of Pearl, because X came out first and then Pearl came out. That was more of, I think they shot Pearl and X back to back, something of that nature. And then there's Maxine. I will say I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very entertaining, but when it came to the third act is where it started to feel very flat, or fall very flat for me, especially with the mystery of the Night Stalker, who the Night Stalker is, and everything that happens within that conclusion. I felt like they could have done something better for whatever reason with Pearl and X. I think what worked well for them is that they felt more contained. And Maxine, of course, you're in LA, so it is a bigger canvas, which we've seen with the Scream series. They have taken the small town approach and then moved into the big city, of course, with New York. And I was hoping we would get a little bit more of that here. And I think we did to a point. But for whatever reason, the ending was just a little underwhelming to me. Not lackluster, maybe not even underwhelming, just whelmed collectively. But this film has amazing production. I think Mia Goth is obviously the star of the show. She is one of the best, if not the best character in this movie, as well as Giancarlo Esposito and Elizabeth Debicki. She does a great job, as well as Michelle Monaghan, who plays one of the detectives in the show, or not the show, excuse me, who plays one of the detectives in the film, as well as Bobby Cannavale, who also plays one of the detectives in this film. But I think stylistically it works so well.
Don't forget Kevin Bacon doing his best Benoit Blanc impression.
Oh, yeah, of course. How can I forget about Kevin Bacon? And for 2 seconds when I saw him, for some reason, my mind went straight to Ethan Hawke. I'm like, even though I knew it wasn't Ethan Hawke, it was, obviously, yes, Kevin Bacon is in this movie as well as one of a private detective. And yeah, there's a lot of star power here. And the same thing with Moses Sumney. I believe that's how you spell his last name. It's everything's obviously focusing around Maxine, but I feel like we should have gotten a little bit more time with these side characters when it comes to Detective Williams, Detective Torres, played by Michelle and Bobby, and Moses' character, Leon Green, all together. And Giancarlo Esposito, he's playing Teddy Knight, not Tech Knight, but Teddy Knight, in this in this movie.
I mean, he's playing a good guy for the first time in a while, at least like semi good.
Yeah,
like he's not an angel, but he's not the antagonist.
Yeah, he's not an angel. He's not a saint, but he's not the devil incarnate either.
Yeah.
But from what we got, I think it is a solid film, but I feel like something is missing for whatever reason. And I don't want to say that I was disappointed when I saw this. I think I need to see it again because throughout the entire film, you see that Mia Goth's character, Maxine, is her past is coming to haunt her after what happened at the end of X, where she kills pretty much both of the Pearl and Howard, the old people killers, all together. So it's nice that people don't have to watch Pearl in order to watch Maxine. You really only need to watch X in order to know what's going on, because Maxine is like the direct sequel to X, and then Pearl is more of like a prequel for Pearl's character altogether. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Something's holding me back from saying that it's like a great horror movie, and I don't know what it is. I think it's really just the third act that kind of ruined it for me because of the reveal of who the killer is, which I think is a good reveal because it makes sense.
It just kind of came out of nowhere, it felt like, where we didn't really have any lead up to it. Because I had kind of forgotten about that character because he's not really mentioned throughout Maxine.
No.
That's where the issue I have with the red herring of the Night Stalker comes in. So I'm not sure if you are aware, but Night Stalker was a real serial killer in the 80s in LA. His name was Richard Ramirez. So they were like kind of playing off of that. I didn't really understand what they were trying to go for with that because he's a real serial killer. Like those killings in LA actually happened in the 80s. And I guess they were trying to just trick us and seem like they were connected somehow because he did have connections to Satanism, which is kind of what the movie was showing as the victims throughout. But at the end of the day, it just didn't really make sense to have that as a red herring. Apparently, I was reading into it. Apparently, one of the victims in the real life killings was named Maxine, interestingly. I don't know if Ty West got any inspiration from that, but yeah, I was just trying to figure it out as the movie was going, like why they kept mentioning the Night Stalker over and over again. Like I want to say like 10 times they dropped the Night Stalker name, and it just doesn't really lead to anything because they show him getting arrested at the end. So it's just it just felt kind of pointless.
I agree. Like it's everything that we've seen that Maxine's gone through. She's finally able to live her dream. She's trying to have this cross audience where, she's been in the adult film industry for a while because, that is like her humble beginnings. Her humble
Very
beginnings.
humble.
Very, very humble beginnings. Yes. So she's trying to, get that cross-generational audience where she wants to move on from adult films into making real movies. And it seems that her in is to be starred in a horror movie called The Puritan 2. And of course, she kind of goes through the film and lists off like a bunch of actors and actresses that got their start in the horror genre. And of course, with Jamie Lee Curtis being one of them and John Travolta as well. I actually almost forgot about that. But
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah. So we see Maxine's climbing the ranks. She gets that big break in this film, but there's something that's holding her back where this killer has effectively almost followed her or has been following her for the past few years, where she's kind of left her old life behind her. She is a fighter. She is a survivor. And I think I like what I like about this movie the most is that we get the same Maxine that we see in X that we have here in this film. So it doesn't feel like an entirely different type of person. She still has that confidence about her. She knows her lines when she goes into auditions. She knows that she's going to get the part. She knows what's expected of her. But of course, everything's like her past starts to catch up with her because everything that happened in X was, traumatizing for anyone.
It's kind of interesting when you think about it. Like with her past, I wonder if she would have gotten caught. Like, would she have been able to just say that was self-defense? Like, I mean, it pretty much was because the old man and Pearl were not up to any good. So I feel like she could have played that card.
Howard, his hip, yeah. Sorry, I just went on a bit of a tangent there. But I agree. I definitely agree.
And I think as far as X go, and you mentioned it earlier where you didn't really feel like the characters in Maxine got enough love or enough representation. I feel like that's the main that's the main thing that X does well. You kind of feel connected to all those characters, like the whole crew that's there. You kind of feel like they all get their time and then they all get their backstory, and it feels like really well connected. And even Pearl to a lesser extent, but you still have obviously Pearl and her sister, her parents, and then the projectionist played by a very super actor.
Yeah, a very, very super actor indeed. But yeah, and I don't know what it was because it's been a while since we have been waiting for this movie. So I don't know if I can't say this is not what Ty West wanted to make because A24 seems like a distributor who's, all in on creativity. And it was creative. Like the kills in this movie were creative. Some are a little bit off screen. They're like half baked almost to where you see a part of it, but you don't see, the deed finally being done, but you see the aftermath of some of these killings and the mark that the Night Stalker leaves behind. But did you figure out who the killer was without saying who it is? Did you figure out who the killer was through before the big reveal?
Not really. Like I said before, the killer that ends up being the killer, it just wasn't really on my mind because I kind of feel like if this had come out directly after X, it would have made more sense when the reveal happens because we just have a long break between movies as far as releases because Pearl is in between the two. It just feels like I didn't have as fresh of a memory of the characters in X and the story that was happening there because it does connect obviously directly to X and without giving it away, I had forgotten kind of that part of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. That's a good point because you have. So, do you think it would have worked? Because I don't know if it would have. Where does Pearl fit in? If not, if they would have released Pearl first.
I got not to blame the release dates or anything, but just kind of the watching of it. If you were to watch it in the chronological order, it would have made more sense. Watching Pearl watching Pearl first, but then X and this back to back. I think things might slot into reality a little bit better. Yeah,
because it's hardly doing this trilogy. It's not every day where you start in the middle of the story and then you go back. Well, actually, no. Star Wars, duh. I was who starts in the middle of a story? Obviously, George Lucas did with the original trilogy and then the prequel and then the sequel. So maybe that's the approach that Ty West wanted. But this is a little bit different because with Star Wars, it's a trilogy, original trilogy, then it's a prequel trilogy. And then you get the sequel trilogy. So that's 9 films. With here, it's only 3. So even if Star Wars released, they didn't release episode, in the original trilogy, they didn't release Empire Strikes Back first, and then they went back to A New Hope, and then they did Return of the Jedi. So they didn't do it that way. But trilogy, chronological wise, they did, but not within the trilogies themselves. But I feel like timing is everything when it comes to this, because we had saw that article where people were asking, do I need to watch X and Pearl? And it's like, no, you don't need to watch Pearl at all. Honestly, like, Pearl is just more of an added bonus, because you can watch X and then go directly to Maxine and be totally fine, because there's flashbacks of what happens in X. Obviously, there's not going to be any flashbacks that happen in Pearl, because that's more of a character study. But I feel like, yeah, Pearl is just more of a, it's there if you want to watch it. It's more for the backstory of X, of what happened before, and then Maxine. But I love how her going to Hollywood in the 80s, the 80s aesthetic is there. It's vibrant. The cinematography is awesome. I'm kind of kicking myself because I missed the 70 millimeter experience watching this film during my early screenings. I was not able to go. And you kind of sort of see it within the digital copy of like the standard release, where, they have like the VHS type of atmosphere happening. But I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed, because I thought, I was like, maybe there'll be another movie, just like a nice little, stay tuned. I stayed until the end of the credits, and nothing happens. The only thing that happened was a Be Kind Rewind symbol popped up.
Yeah, there have been some murmurs and rumors on Twitter since Maxine came out that there might be a fourth one in the works, but there's definitely nothing concrete as of now.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because I love Maxine as a character. Like I said, she is a fighter, she is a survivor, she knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to get it. But yeah, I think it was just the reveal of how they handle the third act with this movie is kind of what is bugging me, like knocked it down for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, especially just not having mentioned they didn't really leave any breadcrumbs. That's why I kind of feel like if you watched X first and then went straight to this, it might have made more sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's just one of those. This is one of those things. I don't think it's a disappointing film at all, because there are a lot of clever kills, like I mentioned before.
There's a certain I don't even know if it ended up being a kill, but a very brutal.
Oh, that was definitely a kill. 1,000%.
Was it? I don't know. I think he might have been able to survive. If we're talking about
I don't know how you survive that, but unless you're David Cornsweet.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he did, but it was very painful to look at. That's for sure.
Whew, that was terrible, man. I don't know. Anyway, technically we did not see a body, so I don't know how that person could have survived. But those are the rules of movies, where it's like, hey, if you don't see a body, then did it really happen? Or is that person really dead? So I don't know. Maybe if there is a fourth movie, what would you like to see in a fourth entry of this film series?
I would have to even think of I would want a fourth one in to begin with, because I kind of feel like he got the story that he wanted in the first three. I'm just not really sure where it could go from here.
I kind of agree, because you don't want it to overstretch, and I think people have been looking forward to Maxine for so long, because they love Pearl, they love X, and like I said, the first, it starts off so strong. You have Maxine going in for a audition, and she's confident, she's there.
I love the first act of this one. It just felt like we just dive right into LA Maxine.
Right, exactly. She's been there a while. Her hair is different. She is a very compelling character, and I love her as a character. Like, I think she's a well-written character as well, with the conversations that she has, like the detectives and just everything that's coming up about her past, who she's careful to tell certain things to specific people. But her being a producer on this, with Mia Goth herself being a producer on this, I think is really awesome, because, you know, they told the story that they wanted to tell, which I think is fantastic. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day. But let's get into our final thoughts and the ratings. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for this film?
My final thoughts, like I mentioned before, I think it is a very entertaining movie throughout. I love the setting and the world that Ty West set up, and obviously Mia Goth really is a star in the horror genre. Like she was made for this. It seems like no matter what kind of accent she's got going on, it all works. And I think we had mentioned that the ending, it didn't feel amazing, felt a little off, and that kind of knocks it down a little bit. And I think the Night Stalker red herring really just didn't work for me. It didn't really make sense for the movie. I'm not really sure what the purpose was. But other than that, I do think it was very entertaining. As far as the score goes, I'd probably give it like a 74 overall. Like still a lot to like, but just kind of some things that come up that bring it down. And I think it'd be interesting for us to rank the 3 movies. I think that could be fun. I know it's tough, but I think I would have to go with X, Maxine, then Pearl. I love them all. I think they're all great, but I just think X and Maxine were a little more entertaining. Pearl was obviously amazing for Mia Goth and her performance, but I think that's how I would go with the ranking.
You know what? I was thinking about this the other day, or especially yesterday, because I was like, where's Maxine gonna, rank in this trilogy? X is number 1, like first and foremost. You get Kid Cudi's in there.
Jackson Hole, baby.
It's such a great. I love it so much. You get a little bit of a Fleetwood Mac in there as well. Like, you can't go wrong. It's X. It will always and forever be number 1.
Great kills, great characters, and the reveal that Mia Goth is also playing Pearl. It's tough to beat that. It was so unexpected.
Exactly, and there's a bit of a Pearl nod in this movie, almost in a molding scene, I guess you could say. But to go back to what you were saying, definitely X is number 1. And then, so I watched Pearl and X prior, again, to watching Maxine. I watched X first, and then I watched Pearl. I probably should have watched Pearl first. I do like Pearl, but I think I'm right there with you. I think it would be X, Maxine, and then Pearl when it comes to entertainment collectively.
That's the fun part of it. I've seen people on Twitter like have rankings like all different kinds. Like everyone has a different number 1, number 3. Like they're all just so interchangeable because the movies are all so different. Like you could love one and hate one just because of how different they are.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to the grabbing of like attention and like the wow factor and the X factor, definitely X number 1, and then Maxine, and then Pearl. Because things happen in Pearl, but it's more of a slow burn. At least with Maxine.
The kills weren't very memorable, at least for me.
No, they really... No. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as high as what I thought I was on it. And, it kind of just... But she has... Freaking Mia Goth has that amazing monologue in Pearl.
And the stare down at the end.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, and the stare down. They're like, welcome home, Howard. I would go X, and then Maxine, and then Pearl in terms of entertainment. In terms of story, I would go X, Pearl, and then Maxine. But entertainment-wise, it would be the same as you, for sure. Because now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, Maxine is a very entertaining time. I wish that third act would have been more fleshed out, because there's a lot of cutaways to certain action scenes, and I'm like, well, I want to see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they kind of just keep cutting away from it, and it just I don't think that's the part that worked for me collectively. But you gave it a 74 out of 100. For me, I'm going to give it... I give it like a 72. I don't want to give it like a solid 70 because like it's better than average. It's like a hard 3.5 movie that had a lot of potential to be something better, but it just falls flat at the end, if that makes sense. So I would give it a 72 out of 100. So with your 74, my 72, that would be a 73.5 as the median score, which will be our podcast score for Maxine. And with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you enjoy what you heard on today's episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And now let's take a sneak peek at what's coming up next on the show that you can look forward to. So we're going to be covering movies, or not even movies. I would say movies. We're going to be covering a few movies here on the podcast. Honestly, for the life of me, as of this recording, I cannot remember what else is coming out in July. Oh, Twisters. We're going to be covering that.
Twisters next week, Long Legs this week.
Ooh, I might have to pass on Long Legs, bro. I am so scared.
It's getting such good reviews.
I'm terrified. Like, I want to sleep at night. I'm like that terrified about it. So we do have Long Legs. That is a to be determined. We're going to be covering Twisters. I'm going to that 1000%. And then we're going to be covering Deadpool and Wolverine on the movie side. And we're also going to be covering The Bear season 3. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely keep a lookout for that. And with all that said, thank you all for listening. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me tell you about the new review releases that we have. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I do apologize. So you can check out our Kinds of Kindness review, as well as our A Quiet Place Day 1 review. Is that prequel worth watching? I don't know. You just have to stick around and find out. You can also check out our The Boys Season 4 review that includes all 8 episodes. That is a non-spoiler review. And you can check out our Inside Out 2 review as well. Brilliant, brilliant film. I kind of want to see it again. I'm not going to lie, because, man, that really got me towards the end. But with all that said, thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay connected with us by following us on Twitter and Instagram for the latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster. And remember, folks, say it with me. I will not accept a life I do not deserve.
I will not accept a life I do not deserve.
I will not accept a life I will do not something blah 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 deserve. I messed up there. But with all that said, we will see you all in the next one.
Peace.